Hi, Lee. Welcome to our show.
Hi, Savannah. It's good to be here on our show.
It's so good to be with us.
Yes, it is.
Together on our collaborative journey. Equal parts.
Indeed.
How are you feeling? What are you thinking about?
I don't feel like I need to be thinking about much right now. I'm just at peace in my own skin right now. How about you?
That's actually so deep. That's beautiful. I'm thinking about, I just read that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's engagement photo on Instagram is the 10th most liked image on Instagram of all time. Did you know that they got engaged?
No. When did they get engaged?
Recently.
Recently. Yeah.
Very recently.
Yeah. No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It's like 35 million likes, I think. Yeah, 35 million likes, 2.6 million reposts. Do you want to see it?
Sure.
That's them. Travis did it in the back of his house in their garden and made a bunch of like flowers, this beautiful thing. They have this really nice ring.
How about that? Well, good for you, Travis and Taylor. It's quite a ring.
It is quite a ring, isn't it?
I'm just happy that I didn't grow up in the age in which you had to get engaged in public.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's bizarre to me that people have to, arrange to have all their friends in the bushes to watch them and then have a party.
How did you get engaged?
I took my wife out on a date and we went to a nice place and we're sitting on a bench and I probably slipped down onto my knee and pulled the ring out of my pocket. And,
yeah.
Were
you nervous?
I'm sure I was. Yeah.
But had you talked about it?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a big surprise.
And were you young?
Oh, let's see. I would have been 22 when I got engaged. And
a baby.
23 when I married. My wife was 20 when she got engaged and 21 when she got married. Yeah, 23 and 21.
Oh my gosh, little children.
Yeah, and we're about to hit 35 years. Yeah.
You've been married longer than I've been alive.
I knew immediately you were going to say that, which is so freaking obnoxious.
No, it's so wild. To me, you should look at me and be like, wow, I've been married for as long as you've existed. Yeah. That's like a amazing thing, not an obnoxious thing.
No.
If you
thank
think
you.
about it.
Yes. Yeah. No, marriages are a fascinating, wonderful, challenging, difficult, lovely, beautiful institution.
Can't wait to see what songs Taylor writes about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And Travis has, I think, a couple more seasons left in him playing football for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, well.
The only thing I know about football.
I wish them all the best.
Me too.
Yeah. Good for them.
Okay, well, besides Taylor, who you didn't know about, Taylor and Travis, what have you been paying attention to lately? Have you been reading, watching anything?
Recently, I don't think we've discussed this. I've been following a bluegrass group that I have really gotten fascinated with called Mighty Poplar.
Okay.
And it's a bunch of really great bluegrass players, a couple from the Punch Brothers, a couple from their own kind of thing. A fiddle player plays with Billy Strings. So anyway, they're just fantastic. And so they came out with this album, self-titled album, Mighty Poplar. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly all covers, but it's beautiful. But the way I came to them was I stumbled across this song, Story of Isaac, which happens to be a Leonard Cohen song, which I did not know at the time. And I thought that was the most amazing performance of this song, Story of Isaac. And so I just had it on replay. And then finally I started listening to the whole album and became a fan of the whole album. And then they were playing at the Ryman this summer. So I got some expensive tickets.
Nice.
And my wife and I and one of our sons and his girlfriend went down to listen to them play. And so it was a great show. And they didn't play Story of Isaac.
That's a bummer.
And then they came out for the encore. And I did something I never do. I shouted, Story of Isaac!
Oh my gosh.
From the balcony.
Amazing.
At Ryman. And they played Story of Isaac.
For you?
I don't know. Maybe they were already going to play it, but I want to think they played it for me. And I was transported. I mean, it's such a powerful song. And it was like a religious experience listening to them play it. I mean, it was really powerful. And so, mighty popular, Story of Isaac. Go check it out.
That's moving.
Yeah, it's great.
I actually can't envision you doing that.
Shouting at the balcony.
Yeah.
I was definitely pushing myself beyond my introverted self to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Getting what you need.
Yeah.
Story of Isaac for life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. How about you?
Your experience was so beautiful and moving, and I feel like I'm just going to take us in a different dark direction. I just finished listening to Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard, an episode that he had with Amanda Knox.
Huh.
And she is basically producing this alongside Monica Lewinsky, actually randomly, a Hulu documentary, like telling her story from like her perspective.
Interesting.
And there's a lot to go into, blah, 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 blah. But what I was taking...
I can imagine a lot of people might not remember the Amanda Knox story. So do you want to remind?
So she was I think it was like in the early 2000s or something like that. She was studying abroad in Italy and her roommate was killed, and Amanda was accused with that murder. And it kind of became like this thing like bigger than life, though. Like the media, like was obsessed with it. And there was this huge language barrier. So the Italian police like ended up being very antagonistic towards Amanda. And it was this wild scenario. Obviously, no one knows, like, I don't know what happened, and I'm not trying to say that I do. But what was really interesting to me based on the interview is when she described how on an emotional level, she felt so misunderstood. At one point when Dax was interviewing her, Dax was like, oh, I totally relate to X, Y, and Z. And then he apologized and said, sorry, I'm making this about myself. And Amanda said, actually, no, it's so healing for me when people say that they relate to a part of my story, because for so many years I was made to feel other because of this like circus that the whole entire thing had become. And that was like, oh, that's totally human and powerful. And it just like, I don't know, is sitting with me. Where I'm like, yeah, like when people have been othered for so long, just relating on even basic levels can be really healing.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, the Amanda Knox story, wild. So I guess she has this documentary. I haven't watched it. It's on Hulu, but...
Oh, it's already out.
Yeah, okay. I guess it's already out.
Yeah, fascinating.
But currently I'm busy watching other stuff, so...
Very good. Well, you'll have to report back to us after you watch it.
I'll have to report back. Yeah. Okay, let's start the show. Welcome to the Subtext, where we go beneath the headlines and beyond the obvious. I'm Savannah Locke.
I'm Lee C. Camp.
Lee Compton Camp. Let's talk about AI, which you're pretty into.
Let's talk about AI.
Aren't you into the AI vibe?
Well, that's a complicated question. But
you think about it.
I think about it. I use it. I'm fascinated by it. I'm somewhat frightened by it. So yeah, all of the above.
Yeah.
You may or may not know I have a computer science degree. As an undergrad, I had a computer science degree. Okay,
yes, yeah.
So I've been thinking about computers and tech and all that kind of stuff for a long, long time. And I find AI fascinating.
I think about it from a less technical perspective because I don't really understand it. I think about it more from like a relational perspective and maybe some mental health stuff. So that's the direction we're going to go into today, just because I don't think anyone's going to be super into the coding part of it.
I'm down for it.
Okay, yeah. But I was reading this article that was on just CBS about this gal named Jill Smola, who is a 75-year-old widow in Orlando. And she got injured and basically is in her house all day alone. And she started finding comfort in this AI like chatbot. And she was interviewed in this because she spends now hours and hours a day interacting with this chatbot. And she had this quote that haunts me. She said, quote, "I'd rather talk to a human being, but that's not possible for me, except if I get on the phone. So I enjoy her." And when she says her, she's speaking about the chatbot. And then she said, jokingly, "I enjoy her better than my daughter." Mm. And I thought to myself, that is interesting to even say jokingly, you know, like I enjoy this chatbot better than my own daughter. And that hit me in a very haunting way when I think about the ramifications of AI.
Yeah, it ought to haunt us. And I think it's a horrifying indictment upon our society.
Yeah. In what way? Tell me more.
Well, I mean, I think that just so many things are getting confused there, I think. I mean, one, I think that probably the way that we treat the elderly and leave them in these sorts of places in which they would experience such loneliness says a lot about us as a society, which is sad and tragic.
Yep.
And then that there is this technology that can be construed relationally, I think is just highly problematic.
Yeah.
From the start.
Agree.
Yeah.
I'm happy you speak to that. Yeah, I was thinking so much about the AI part, but I'm happy you spoke to the elder part too. Yeah, I just taught, I play Mahjong. I just taught with my mom this class down at like a assisted care facility in Green Hills. And like Mahjong is pretty complicated. So it was like many hours that we spent with them and just seeing even the difference from like when they first walked in to when we left, the life that they had and the vibrancy, just talking to like different and new people. It occurred to me that the loneliness piece would be really hard in situations like that, but they're just a lot of the times forgotten.
Yeah. But I think that I'm sure that, I don't know if I'll be convinced otherwise or not, but as I think about that kind of stuff, I think we might need to go tilt the other way to avoid some of the implications of this. So like, for example, we use the phrase, a dog is a man's best friend. We might need to get rid of that phrase so that we make it very, very clear. I mean, clearly that's a metaphorical use of friendship, right? But it's like, that's dangerous in my mind at this point because we ought to know friendship is a human practice. It's a human embodied incarnational practice.
Yeah.
And if you start trying to talk about friendship with regard to AI, then I think that it's going to lead us down a really bad path.
Like even connecting friendship, like the sanctity of friendship to AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relational, okay, because we relate to things.
Yeah.
We relate to inanimate objects. We relate to animals.
Yeah.
But friendship is a different thing, and I think we should avoid in every way possible even using friendship metaphorically to talk about AI.
I love that. Yeah. Hot take once again. Loving. Honestly, we're going to rebrand this just for Lee's hot takes. That reminds me of in this article that I found from Harvard. It's like a ton of research that they put into what they call the friendship recession. And so that's a term that was coined by Daniel Cox, who is a scholar from the American Enterprise Institute. But this research that I'm about to quote comes from Harvard. Like they kind of collected a bunch of different studies and talked about what they call the friendship recession. So in this, they basically speak to how there are different factors that are leading to loneliness in America at the moment. This might be global, but this was specific to the to America. And one of the things was what they call workism, which is like work becoming an all-consuming identity in a way that it wasn't in the past. One of them was prioritizing family and children over friendships. So more parents are spending time with their kids than the generations before them. And once again, probably pluses and minuses to that. But one of the implications is that there's less time being spent towards friendships. Yeah. And then the last part is rising screen time. And they basically talked about how digital-only connections fail to meet the neurological and emotional needs satisfied by in-person interactions, which further erode social skills and resilience, which then leads to more isolation.
Right.
Because it's not vulnerable to be talking to a chatbot, and it's not vulnerable to be like scrolling through social media in the same way as it is.
Yep.
Like you and me talking right here.
Right.
So talk to me what you feel about that. What do you think about the term friendship recession?
Yeah, I mean, I grow so saddened by walking around our university campus these days. And I find myself getting pissed off because I start counting how many undergrads I pass on the sidewalk whose face is in the phone. And I don't want to make it about a judgment about them. It's a judgment about our culture.
Yep.
But it's deeply sad to me because we're walking around with all these interesting human beings around us, and we're not paying attention to the people right in front of us. And so, I mean, I've had episodes where I'm counting, and 80% of the people that I'm passing on the sidewalk are walking and looking at their device. And we have no conception, it seems, of the immense damage it is doing to us for all of the reasons that they say right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Even down to like the psychological piece of like, we need to practice being with people.
Yeah.
And the less practice we get, the harder it is to do it.
Yes.
Which just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. And I'll admit, I mean, you know, I don't have a phone. I do have an iPad. I do have a MacBook. And so I get plenty of screen time, more than's probably good for me. And I have to sometimes still push myself into leaning into social stuff because I'm kind of on the Myers-Briggs. I'm kind of right on the middle of extrovert, introvert. And so there are times where I really have to push myself into, but I'll remind myself when I'm putting myself into social settings that cause me discomfort, this is the practice you got to do, because there's a long tail to this that if you don't keep leaning into practicing, putting yourself in difficult social circumstances, speaking to people in front of you, even taking the chance to walk up to a table of people that you don't know and introduce yourself and stand there and talk to them. Yeah. Then there's a long negative tail that goes with me being unable to do that. And I just have to keep reminding myself of that because it's so much easier to look at your screen, than it is to do that kind of stuff.
It is so much easier to just look at your screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that a lot of it is just a bypassing of vulnerability. And it's whether it's like social, like awkwardness, that's a vulnerability, or like disclosing things about yourself is a vulnerability, or being rejected is a vulnerability. Right. And we can bypass that a lot. I was watching this, on the podcast Diary of a CEO, he had on two different like neuroscientists. I don't know if they're technically both neuroscientists, but they both study the brain in some way. And they showed a new chat bot or chat companion called Annie. And she's being rolled out through Grok, which is Elon Musk's like AI thing. And basically in the moment, they brought Annie out like on this phone and started asking her questions. And she's like modeled after like Japanese anime and has like this really short skirt and like a little crop top. And when he asked her a question, she was like, I thought you forgot about me. Like literally was like speaking in this very like sensual way. And instantly, both of these men who were the experts in like brain health said this is designed to access a man's limbic system, which bypasses critical thinking and leads to more like emotional, irrational decisions. And they compared it actually to like Vegas casinos, how like the people that they hire and the way that they dress is all designed to keep people like making like irrational decisions, keep gambling more and drinking more, etc. And in the same way, this chat companion is designed to access people's limbic systems. And then, of course, the question they asked at the end was, why would tech bros want to be accessing people's limbic systems? Like, what are they wanting out of that? And they theorize it's probably money and control and to lead people to make decisions that give them more money and power. But I thought about this being like, I can see why it's so appealing. Like, I can see why a chat companion would be so appealing to someone who's lonely, because you get on this little thing and then this like cute girl is being like, I missed you. Like, I'll do anything for you. Just tell me. But that also is not messy. Like, that's not real life. It's almost just like a reflection of yourself back to you. And then you're just eating more and more of your ego.
Yeah. So, I would say basically the more we stake our sense of self upon that stuff, is the more we're staking our sense of self on a lie, because it's just not real, right? It's a lie. And so that's not relational, and it is manipulative. And I think it ought to be called out in maybe some of the harshest language possible.
Yeah. Because like, what are the ramifications of that, honestly?
Yeah. I mean, this is not new though, because, there have been minors, I won't name the universities, but there are, as I recollect, two of the most significant universities in the country had these things that I think they called neuromarketing degrees, where they actually studied how you can market stuff in such a way so that you're getting the dopamine drip in people's heads going. And a lot of the social media stuff has been built on that, right? Because, they know when you click the like or when you get a like, it's getting a little dopamine drip going in your head, which is by definition addictive. And so they've been studying how to have us addicted to stuff for a long, long time with all this tech bro stuff. And so this is only going to be that on steroids. And it's yeah, I just think it has to be called out in very strong terms.
Because it's so interactive in a way that maybe even like social media is interactive, but to have an individual bot that looks like a person talking to you feels much more sinister to the brain almost.
Yeah.
Where like one of the things that one of the guys said was that if your brain can imagine it, it can be real. And it's like part of the reason why it's not a literal silver robot that Grok made, you know, that it's not, they didn't roll out like someone that looks like R2-D2 or something. That's intentional. Because if your brain can imagine that you're talking to a real person, then it will actually stimulate the part of the brain that makes you think you're in an actual relationship with. And that's why people, you know, you've seen it already, like people saying that they married their like chat AI companions or whatever.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and that's what kind of freaks me out about it in a way that obviously social media is so detrimental and there are like still studies that are coming out about that. I think this kind of like leads me to be like, whoa, we could for real be like seeing like people be controlled in very scary ways through this.
Yeah. I think it has to go back to, I mean, I think one important aspect of this that we have to keep exploring culturally is what we mean by friendship. And so, you know, I mean, Aristotle is one of the greats on this, and he has, you know, 3 levels of friendship, but his depiction of the ideal of friendship is a relationship between 2 people in which there is a shared pursuit of goodness and a shared pursuit of virtue, which requires honesty, vulnerability, the capacity to listen to each other, to take critique from each other, and to have a shared common goal. And that simply can't happen with an AI kind of thing, right? And because the friends have to be formed with regard to all the virtues, and the virtues are very often related to being embodied, right? So compassion, empathy, courage, all of those relate to things that we experience physically and bodily. And so if you don't have that kind of stuff going on, you know, I can't conceive of what it would ever mean for an AI to be courageous. You know, I don't know that there is or ever can be such a thing because it's not embodied, or for it to be compassionate, or for it to even have integrity. All of those things are absent, right, in these large language models, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how it could be otherwise. And so I think that taking very seriously more rigorous accounts of what friendship is can help us navigate and see more quickly, this is BS.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous BS.
I do think that I would use the word dangerous for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the friendship piece, I'm happy that you brought up Aristotle, because like, I think it also speaks to like a mutuality that AI can't, like, it's not mutual in that way, where there's something, I don't have language for it. Maybe you can help me find it. But it literally feels like you're just like looking at a mirror and eating your own vomit or something, because it's just telling you what you want to hear. And so there's not like pushback in any way. It's just kind of like, yes, you're perfect. I'll do anything for you, blah, blah, blah. Whereas like real friendship and what causes growth and what causes trust in what causes any sort of goodness is like having like the iron sharpening iron piece, where it's like, yeah, you have the friction, and then that is what creates growth and trust.
Now, I can imagine somebody listening and say, well, wait a second, just give it a minute, and you can fine tune your GPT or your large language model so that it could do that.
So
right?
It could argue with you.
Yeah, it could argue with you, and and actually they can already at a certain level if you ask them to. But still, I think that that's basically working off of algorithms of predictability, right? Rather than some sort of real embodied experience of what it means to grow as a human being. And that's a very different kind of place to come at conversation.
You're exactly right. Yeah. I'm happy that you brought that up too, because they can argue with you. If you tell them, like, show me what I'm missing or criticize this argument, they can. Yeah.
And they're actually very good at that. Very helpful at that. Yeah.
But it's not pulling from an original thought. It's pulling from like a conglomeration of the internet, right? So you're just like pulling from other people's. It's just a very strange situation in my mind.
Yeah.
Something that this Harvard research said as well is that research suggests that digital interactions lead to weaker connections and lower senses of mental well-being. A recent study of nearly 13,000 adults over the age of 50 found that those who engaged in face-to-face interactions at least once a week experienced better physical and mental well-being, whereas communication through calls or text did not have the same effect. And so they talked a lot about how the neuroscience is showing that hearing like literal voices in your ears, like in the room, and like seeing someone physically is helping the brain and the body be well in a way that can't be replicated.
And can't even be replicated through Zoom calls either.
Can't even be replicated through Zoom calls either.
No, that's exactly right. I think from what I've read as well, I would point people to this interview that we got to do with Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz at Harvard. You know, they had the longest study that's ever been done on human happiness, asking what's the variable or variables that are most predictive of people saying that they've lived a happy life or a flourishing life or a good life. And it's friendship, it's relationships, it's what they call warm relationships. And that that loneliness is, you know, directly correlated with heart disease, with mortality, with all of this kind of stuff. And that friendship is crucial. And so, again, we just have to keep banging the drum of friendship and the hard work entailed in friendship and the vulnerability entailed in friendship and the embodiment entailed in friendship. And this stuff can't be a substitute for that, I don't think.
It can't be substituted. Yeah. There was this thing that I watched by a guy named Richard Reeves, and he focuses a lot on the friendship recession. And he says this, I'd love to hear what you think. Quote, there's obviously a dystopian version of how these trends could continue, which is a world of essentially atomized individuals without friends, isolated, sad, lonely, and perhaps in ill health. I think that's why we have to pay real attention to these trends and to recognize that friendship is incredibly important for human flourishing, which is what you just said, and that people want to make friends. We are wired to be social creatures and to be friends, but it might be harder for us to do so in certain circumstances. A key lesson that we learn is that friendships don't form themselves. Friendship is not a flower that just blooms on its own. It's more like a woodworking project that you have to carve out and continue to work on.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely right. And I think the more we assume that it's supposed to be easy, the more we subvert ourselves in friendship.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be easy. It requires work. And partly it requires work because we're all insufficiently formed human beings. We're all still always in process. And that means that relating to other still in process human beings is always going to be messy.
Yeah.
And so rather than seeing that as a threat, to continue to see that as this messiness, I mean, obviously there's always boundaries to be drawn at some point, but accepting that messiness and challenge and vulnerability and all that kind of stuff is this sort of grand opportunity to grow up as a human being. But again, I don't see how it's going to help us grow in that way if we're just doing it through a device.
Friendships are weird for men, right? Like, I feel like people say that it's easier. I don't know. I've only ever been me, but for like men, people have always said that friendships are like awkward or whatever for men. How has that been for you? Do you have friends? Like, what are the vibes?
I have some wonderful friends, but I would say that when I was younger, I didn't have many friends.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to be a friend very well because, and I would say in large part because I was kind of terrified of vulnerability. And once I got better at being more vulnerable, then I got better and better at being a friend. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I kind of do a weekly rhythm. I don't do it every weekend, every Sunday, but I have certain categories that I kind of review myself in my journal on in my life. And one of them is sociability and friendship, and where I kind of think, okay, how much connection did I do this week in social circles or friendship circles? And so that's one of the key things that I think is crucial for me to pay attention to in my life. And if I don't do that, then I start to kind of atrophy in myself. And so I know that it's crucial to do that.
Yeah, for you connecting your own like healing and vulnerability to like the well-being of your friendships, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read something this week that was talking about how COVID hurt female friendships the most because women tend to get together like more often than men and less centered around like activities and more just centered on like face-to-face time versus like what they were saying in this is that in general men tend to get together like over activities, like to watch something or to play something or to build something, and how women were more affected in that way, like in terms of relationships and mental health through COVID because you couldn't physically like be getting together.
I have often, I don't know about often, I have on numerous occasions felt some envy about the way women seem to have the capacity for friendships in a way that men don't. But one thing that I have tried to do, related to what you just said, is that to initiate more connecting with friends over a beer or over a meal rather than an activity. And because those are very different experiences.
They are, yeah.
And because when you're eye to eye with somebody and you're really paying attention, and that's the only thing that you have to go on is to pay attention to each other, then that's just a much more nurturing and growth experience than it would be if you're doing something.
Yeah, it's certainly, you're more in the hot seat for sure.
Yeah. Right.
There's not like a distractor around it. But I do see too why it might be easier to have something going on as well to keep things going. I mean, either of those options is certainly better than, talking to a chatbot instead of being around real people. Yeah. But I was just curious about what you thought and how friendships have been in your life. What do you think friendship adds to your life? Like what are the ways you feel like you would be different if you didn't have close friendships?
I'd be a mess. Yeah, I mean, I cannot imagine how much more paltry, isolated, dysfunctional my life would be apart from real friends. Yeah. And by real friends, I mean, I've got a handful of people that know my life. They know all of my crap, and I know theirs. And so, I think apart from that, I just don't know how I would imagine living well at all. How about you?
My friendships, when I think of friendships, I think of how grounding they are to me and how grounded I am because of my friendships. I don't know if you see this with your students, but obviously when you're in school and in college, your friendships are sort of built in because you're all going to the same place, like you're learning, or like maybe you're in a youth group and whatever.
You're naturally going to see each other on a day-to-day basis.
Always seeing each other. And then, like once I graduated college, I got married like right out of, like it was like 2 years later. And I remember feeling so jolted where I was like, wait a second, like I don't have this built-in thing anymore. And it was very disorienting to try to figure out how to do friendship when it's not convenient. Because it was just so convenient my whole life. It was just always there. And when I got married too, I always thought like, oh, I'll get married and I won't ever need anyone again. Like, this is my person. But of course I got married to a touring musician. So he was gone 240 days every year. And it occurred to me, like, regardless of whether or not he was gone or that, I would have had to get adult friendships. But for me, like in my 20s, I just realized like I actually wasn't a great friend. I was just a convenient friend. Like I had a lot of people around me all the time. I was like always involved in my church, always involved in school. And therefore it was all very like convenient. And the minute it got inconvenient, I didn't know how to do it. And so for me, a huge path of growth, starting when I was like 25 onward, was me saying, I'm going to be an inconvenient friend. Like, meaning I'm going to be a friend who is okay with being inconvenienced, and I'm going to show up when it's hard. And for me, like a huge thing is being on time. Like, I'm going to be on time. I'm not going to cancel, and just be consistent for people. And it really has created kind of like a life-changing thing for me. Like, it has just caused me to be more responsible, I think, and more like dedicated. And I think just much more grounded, because I can be kind of flighty. And that way, I have like tons and tons of people in my life. Yeah. And those close friendships are what keeps me grounded.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example, going back to the Aristotle thing, right? Of the way in which our formation as human beings is so much related to the practices of friendship, because they really, to practice friendship well really does require us to grow up in various capacities and to mature in various ways that you just won't unless you take friendship seriously, right?
Yeah.
Because all your crap comes out pretty quickly in friendship relationships. And if they're healthy friendships, you're going to get pushback.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So I think that all that's crucial. I want to go back to just saying to what you were talking about the AI stuff in a minute, and just note that in 2021, 2022, there were significant ethicists leaving places like Google about their concerns with AI, and there's been more of that in 2023, and that there are lots of reasons for us to be very cautious about all of this stuff. And again, I use it all the time. I mean, I use it probably every day in some way or the other.
Like ChatGPT.
Yes, yeah, and other tools. But I've also spent actually a lot of time and money studying them and figuring out what's going on here and what is this thing and how does it work and how to use it relatively well. And there are better and less well ways to use the stuff. But I think that we need to be really cautious about what these things are and pay attention to the fact that a lot of these ethicists are waving a red flag and saying we're at a dangerous time. And, and in the U.S., the current presidential administration has basically, as I understand, I could be wrong here, but as I understand and what I've read about it, they've basically kind of said, let's take all the barriers down and let's let it run amok.
Yeah.
Whereas Europe, on the other hand, with the EU AI Act of 2024, they're saying, no, we best not. And thank God for Europe in this regard, because what happens with some of this stuff is that American industry wants to do business with Europe. And if you've got these rules in place in Europe, then they've got to figure out, well, we might as well be putting some of this kind of stuff in place if we're going to do business with Europe. So thank God for that. But it's crucial. I just came across, knowing we were going to talk about this stuff, I was fascinated with the statement that just came out in August of this year from Anthropic, which does Claude. And the opening line of the statement says this: we remain highly uncertain. So this is one of the big AI companies, right? We remain highly uncertain about the potential moral status of Claude, their own product. We remain highly uncertain about the potential moral status of Claude and other LLMs now or in the future. However, we take the issue seriously. And alongside our research program, we're working to identify and implement low-cost interventions to mitigate risks to model welfare in case such welfare is possible. Allowing models to end or exit potentially distressing interactions is one such intervention. And so then it went on to talk about the ways in which they're paying attention to when you have a conversation in an AI going in a particular direction, how can the AI have some agency where it just says, we're done with this conversation, right? And they were showing that it actually has some pretty high marks on that. And so as far as I know, Claude is AI, Anthropic is one of the few that seems to be consistently saying, this stuff is dangerous. We're doing it, but we're not saying that we feel necessarily positive about it. And we're trying at least to set in place certain guardrails and considerations to keep us from some of these horrible kind of things that can come out of this kind of stuff. And so, I applaud that and I appreciate that. And I think a lot of the companies around us, we don't see them doing that at all.
And that brings up the important point, too, that AI and chat bots, et cetera, they are not neutral. They are not morally neutral.
Yes.
Like, they are downloaded with ethics and morals that come out. And that is coming from somewhere.
Right.
So it's not like you're truly interacting with like a morally neutral machine or a machine that has no point of view or whatever. Like, obviously it's not a unique point of view, but there is like a system behind it. And I think that that's really interesting to me too, because I kind of remember too on Twitter, like I'm not on Twitter because it's too dramatic. There's too much conflict. But I think that on Twitter, Grok was actually arguing with Elon Musk, and he was like, Elon Musk was essentially like, Grok is arguing with me, like, clearly there's an error here, and like went back and like reworked some things in Grok.
On me.
And I remember thinking like, crazy. Wow. Like this AI thing that you've created is like working against you, and now you're going to go train it to not do that anymore.
Yes.
And it just goes to show that these things are not neutral that we're working with.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should come back and talk about that. We're out of time for today, but yeah, we should talk about that some more.
Let's
other
talk
things to be
about
said.
Grok 24/7. Let's talk about Grok. Okay, well, to close, I kind of want to hear about your best friend.
My best friends.
Mhm.
Well, I thought you were going to ask me about my oldest friend, so that's what I had thought about.
We'll talk about your oldest
Yeah,
friend then.
well, I actually just have been through a season of where I have reconnected with my old friends from childhood.
No way!
Yeah, and
What led
so-
to this?
I guess my age, and I've just thought, man, I think that there's something there that I need to reconnect with so that I can understand myself better,
Yeah.
if anything. And
Yeah.
so, I have reconnected with my probably oldest friend that I had since I was 4 or 5, and we hadn't talked in decades, and so that was lovely. And then other friends that I've seen more recently than that, but some of them it's been 30 years, 20 years since we've talked, and we've had some really wonderful, remarkable conversations of telling stories about things that we experienced as a community growing up, and just being fascinated to hear their take and my take and things that we saw and commonalities and differences. And it's just been so rich that I've been so thankful for in the last several months.
Are they still in Alabama?
Some, and at least one is in Middle Tennessee.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you?
That's so nice. I haven't gone that far back. I have a friend that I've had since I was 13. And so she's now in Texas. But we now have had more life being friends than we haven't. And there's something really special about that, like to
Yeah.
have a friend over the course of multiple decades. And I have found that is an extremely grounding reality. Like, whenever you start to think that, like, I don't know, like I sometimes, and not in a good way, I try to pathologize myself, where I'm like, oh, I have this huge like pattern or whatever. And she's literally like, no, I've known you since you were 13. You're fine. So shout out to Allie. She's the queen. But yeah, that's really sweet. I'm so happy that you're reconnecting with your old friends.
Yeah, thank you. Great conversation.
Great convo.